I just had to get out of Chicago. and no, Casey, yeah, you're not on screen yet. So the tech travels with me mostly, but here we are now in the middle of the country, and all I can think about is how much I'd like to go on a cruise. Wouldn't you like to go on a cruise? We're going to take you on a cruise tonight on the Mosaic Ark. Welcome. Now, how's that for an aborted launch, right? It's like, okay, so fine. Yeah. Which those of you watching this recording don't know what I'm talking about in terms of the hidden background mistake that I just made. That's hopefully what we're always doing here for you on the Mosaic Ark. The paddling madly underneath this is disguising all sorts of things.
The galley slaves.
Oh, yeah.
They're rowing.
Yes. Well, my beast, my dragon is with me here in my mom's basement, and he'll keep me informed of trespassers and scallywags and pirates and stuff like that. But yes, we're rolling the seas now. Yeah. Cruise. We got to go on a cruise, right?
Yes. We have to go to cruise.
I mean,
you have to get.
We've been going on cruises now for 2 years. This is like the relaunch of the cruise line. We should have just called it the Love Boat from the beginning. I mean, it's
yeah, I did point that out. We are your cruise directors. We are your Julie McCoy.
Okay, no, which one? Wait, you're Julie. Who am I? Isaac? I get to be the bartender?
Well, there was somebody who took over for Julie, and I can't remember who she was. Remember? Because Lauren Hughes left, and they brought somebody else on. Her was her cousin, wasn't it?
Maybe. Oh, what in the
night when it was 12.
No, well, so what I did back when I was not in this house that my mother lives in now, but in another house that also had a basement. But I didn't watch the Love Boat in the basement there. I watched it in the den with the same couch that's in this room right now.
Oh no, that's awesome.
That couch is from the 70s. Oh yeah, this is excellent.
That's awesome.
And I would draw, right? So I have like all of the sketches and such when I was trying. This was back when I was subscribing to 17, and so I would spend watching The Love Boat and then Fantasy Island, the plane.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, double feature
every week. And it was, I could do a good sketch in 2 hours. I've seen the sketches; they're less detailed than I felt they were at the time. Hey, I the amount of attention I took to drawing eyes, right, and getting the exact right line on the nose and getting the mouth, and it's like if I'm worried about beauty, it's that, right? It wasn't watching The Love Boat; it was trying to draw the 17 cover models while I was sort of watching The Love Boat.
Yeah, you didn't really need to pay close attention to it because it was the exact same plot every week.
No, it wasn't. There was 3 different plots every week, which were each about 7 minutes long.
Love stories every week.
What?
It was 3 different love stories every week, and you would run the gamut of an entire relationship in 45 minutes.
Right, but since there were three, and you had to have the getting on the ship and the getting off the ship, and the banter with the crew every so often, the actual love story plots were like 7 minutes. Back at
yeah, they weren't much. Yeah, we were so easily amused back then, weren't we?
Apparently. Okay, so however, we could say yes, we were meant to be the love boat, because here we are cruising around teaching you to love the world. We could say that, right? But there's a crossover that I've since learned about.
What?
So there's another, the princess, right, that they're sailing on in the love boat. It's a real ship, right?
The Princess Line. Yes, it's a whole line.
Right.
Yeah, Princess Line.
They're on that Princess Line, and they're going down the coast of Mexico from LA to Mexico and back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's another show that we like that does the same trip on the same ship.
Oh, I'm gonna rack.
Yeah, well, no, come on. We only have one moment of trivia this summer, right? It's Columbo.
Oh,
yes, he does.
Though?
No, he does, and he goes on that one.
Oh no. Oh, I gotta speed up my rewatching.
You do, or I'm reading. I have read one book, and I have read half of another book about the filming of Columbo, and they advertised they'd renamed the ship to the Princess Line, and they were going to start doing those Princess Line. The maiden voyage of that ship, they filmed that episode of Columbo on.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
So that he's wandering around, it's like, that looks familiar. As far as I'm concerned, that that is the cruise ship that is all cruise ships. There isn't researching for today, like I am struck with horror to find that cruise ships don't all look like that anymore. Like they have like multicolored decks, and some of them have 2 decks, and it's way too much.
They look like giant cities, like floating cities,
like arcs,
which is not as appealing.
It's an arc. It could contain everything.
Well, that's one way of looking at it.
Oh, come on. Our arc, and we are going to have to do some, once I get out of the basement and we've had our vacation and met up at BaseCon. You guys have a lot of treats coming in the Mosaic Ark world as we careen around the country and bump into each other happily.
Yes, we are doing that this month, the next couple of weeks.
Yes. Watch for notices on our social media about BaseCon. You guys need to know that I'm going to be doing a lecture on Christian storytelling, because that's what I do. And I've taught Casey into being on a panel, at least one, talking about fairy tales. Telling everybody what we actually do.
Do the best I can.
You'll be great. But we're also working on getting some visuals to explain this concept that we have now realized that we've been working with all along, but haven't explained to you guys. So sorry.
We're figuring it out as we go along too.
We're figuring it out as we go along. We've been sailing around the internet for 2 years now. We finally figured out we're a ship. That's good. I mean,
even though we named ourselves after a ship to begin with.
It's stunning.
That's why we did that.
It's stunning to not be able to tell, right? And however, I do think this does fit our theme, which is, what else aren't we noticing? Right. Casey and I were talking before we came on live with you guys. We hope you're still there. The Dreamer says, I've dressed for Milo. Yes, and Milo is back on stream too. I still haven't watched the Timcast today, so don't spoil it for me in the chat. But did you watch it? Did you like it, Daydreamer? And also because I couldn't find anything else to wear I haven't done laundry in a week. I'm living in the basement. I spent the first part of the basement week online in a conference that's meeting in Oxford on Franciscans, and I'm thinking a lot about Franciscans. Maybe we'll tell you guys about Franciscans this year, because I've been reading a lot about Franciscans. If you haven't heard me say, I'm writing about Franciscans. But that we are the further along we get in our poetry writing, the more the story is clarifying for us in the kinds of things that we're trying to show. And I think we're also realizing the kinds of things that we are doing that's different from what everybody else is doing. And I think that's probably why at this moment we're finally able to say a little more clearly how we differ from all of those other podcasts that you will never need to watch again because we're better.
Yes, we are.
Because we're happier.
Hope. It's true. We have hope.
We have hope. And okay, so the thing we aren't, which you all will appreciate because we've only done it a few times, is strictly speaking an interview show. We're not averse to bringing guests on. Like a cruise ship, we might have cruise entertainers, right? But we'll definitely have some more of our friends. We already had magic tricks twice, right? We've had varieties of storytellings and artists and doomsayers. We'll have those occasionally. My student Avita Duffy, who now has her own show with the early edition in Dan Bongino's platform. So we obviously bring on guests, but that's not our goal, right? It's not we're making interviews with people. If we bring guests on, they're for the sake of our cruise, right? So we're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are not, I'm very sorry to say, going to give you guys much internet drama because I'm the good witch. You have to go to Milo for that.
But you are a witch. So there could be a little bit, right?
Just don't make me angry.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm a Terry Pratchett witch, right? The witches in Terry Pratchett are always disrupting the stories, right? So they're in the fairy tales and preventing them from trapping people. So I'm definitely willing to go with that kind of witchiness. But we try to keep ourselves from indulging in the gossip. I know it's hard. Do you think they believe us? We're women, right? We don't gossip.
I don't think they believe you. I don't think they believe us because I've been like going back and looking at the things that we've streamed, you and I and Kilts over the past 3 years. And there's always an aspect of what's current, what's going on right now, and we're trying to understand it and explain it. That does sound a lot like gossip because it's usually you're taking something out of popular culture that's happening right now, but it's not gossip for the sake of gossip. We're trying to actually understand it and apply past lessons of history to it and try to understand it ourselves and explain it to other people, which is kind of what we're doing with the writing too. It's
right.
Like, this idea of how you explain all of the things that are going on in the world, spiritually and physically. How do you make any sense of it? Because a lot of it doesn't seem to make any sense, especially today, right? So it can look a lot like gossip simply because we're talking about current events. But of course, the main difference is we're doing it with a virtuous purpose, which is to try to actually understand it and not just
grift off of it. You got to subscribe to Unauthorized so we get some money to pay our artists. I mean, just it's not gonna. We need.
That's not that's like people need to eat, and
we don't use AI art. So you help us create human art. There's that, yeah.
I bought my son a copy of because he was reading it and it unfortunately got destroyed by some mold. He went to camp, so and he brought it with him. But it was the Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh, right? Nice,
and
yeah.
I bought him a three book set before. And unfortunately, the first one got destroyed. He asked me to buy him another one. So I did. And it had different artwork on it because it was a different publisher. And he said, wow, this is way cooler than that other one. And it was a real artist. That's why.
Right. So these are.
So it makes a big
This
difference.
is another of our projects, right? To support real art and human made art, even though we exist in the maelstrom of the internet. For you guys, so that we're talking, we're streaming and talking about the stories. But yes, we're supporting the art. Tolkien, right? That if you are new to our stream, because now we figured out how to live stream it on YouTube too, that I am all.
Yeah, we're slow, but we eventually catch on.
We're old women. Come on, we're grannies, right?
have a lot to do. We got a lot going on.
Well, that too. But you know, we take things deliberately by steps rather than trying to figure it out all at the same time. Even though, well, anyway, that I have I'm going to be publishing an episode a week of the Forge of Tolkien from Unauthorized, that original series that aired 4 years ago. But now we'd like more people to be able to see it now, and we know that you all are going to subscribe to Unauthorized to get our content and everybody else's content too. So if you want the whole series of Tolkien now, it's all there. And on the YouTube, I'll be posting one a week, right? It's a full year's worth of videos. Okay, so we've got...
Yeah, I can vouch. They're really good. Yeah, totally worth watching, for sure.
I did feel moderately smart while I was doing it. Well, but it was fun because it was drawing off of my U Chicago course lectures, but because in campus I only get an hour and a half for class, right? And on the YouTube, on the unauthorized videos, I got to just talk for as long as I needed to and unpack things that I hadn't ever dealt with actually in campus class. So they start from the structure and ideas that I had for the campus class, and you get the reading for that on my blog, Tolkien, Medieval and Modern. But the UATV videos are deeper. They go a lot deeper than anything I've ever been able to do on the campus course. So it's hopefully worth checking it out. So we're witches. No, yes, sort of. To tell stories.
I know lots of people would agree with that with respect to me, but go on.
I saw in the Reddit thread that they were, when they did the Ask Me Anything to Vox, that I existed in their imagination solely as that white-haired boomer from U Chicago. I'm not a boomer, guys.
Yeah, everybody over the age of 40 is a boomer.
I accept everybody over the age is old, right? That's fine. Milo will be 40 in a month or two. He thinks he's 39, but it's creeping up on him. I refuse absolutely to side with the boomers. I'm Gen X on the bleeding edge of Gen X. I've been dealing with the boomers longer than anybody else alive because we were born right after them. So there. And many of
preach it, sister.
And some of my friends are boomers, so get a grip. But not everybody. We recognize that we have a particular look and it's ours. So there were the telling stories and trying to see how we're caught up in them, and drawing on, Casey's saying it very beautifully, and I'm being silly tonight. The sort of, well, you actually did say it very beautifully. Keep going.
Are you talking about what we're doing here? Yes, what we're
doing here, because I'm gibbering.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I could restate what I said.
Say it again, because we want to make sure people hear us this time.
All right. So you had speculated that some people might think we're gossiping, right? Which gossiping is just you're taking a popular topic in popular culture right now and go, ooh, let's talk about that. Let's laugh at them and let's point at it. That's not exactly what we're doing. We are talking about it, but we're talking about it to try to understand it, to try to understand something about the world we're living in right now and how it relates to the world our ancestors lived in 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, especially 2,000 years ago, right? Because we have a Christian worldview, and we have a very Marian worldview on top of that, along with that, I should say, along with that. So we're trying to understand our world, what's going on in it, and maybe try to explain it to ourselves. It does help our writing. Mm-hmm. Our writing has a bunch of time zones, time periods that combine, basically. And I don't want to give too much away, but we study history and contemporary, and sometimes those things get mixed together, and people don't realize it. People don't realize that this kind of stuff has happened before, and it might have just a small tweak of difference about it, but if you ever find yourself saying, I'm experiencing deja vu, it's probably something you've heard before. This sounds familiar. This looks familiar. Have we done this before? We did, but not quite like this, but so close, right? So history rhymes, as they say. And that's what we discuss when we discuss contemporary things.
Well, so we've done, we don't do everything that is, it's interesting what we picked as topical things to talk about, Barbie had to be talked about, and Dune had to be talked about, and the Putin interview with Tucker.
Right. Well, Dune is like just a wellspring of historical references
Right.
that can be applied currently. I think that's why I was so amazed by the movie, and eventually the book. I did buy the book. I am reading it. And I understand it's much better.
Yeah, the book is excellent. And we talked about the encampments, and we talked about the Trump shooting, and we talked about Pride Month and such, but we're always trying to do it with the sense that we're sailing over depths that we're often not even aware of before we start streaming and figure out that we haven't even plumbed them part.
Yeah.
I saw a neat video, I think it was on Etherzar's channel, of the depths of the ocean, and I'm like, yeah, we're down there.
That's scary.
It's like there's so much that we're most of the time we're paddling around on the shores, the beaches and such. We're taking the ship out into the depths and somewhat trying to figure out all of the layers of history and culture and mythology that are supporting the stories now.
Right. We're sailing on a sea of information.
Yeah.
And it's never been more accessible to people, and yet people have probably, not just because this is the first time it's happened, but because there's just so much volume of it. I think people feel the waves crashing over their heads in the sea. So, climb aboard the Ark. We'll try to sail through it and try to understand it and try to explain it to ourselves and others.
Well, and this is okay. So we're in this. We've talked a lot also about media and the internet environment that we're in. I mean, as we're streaming, but also that we're all living in. So it's like, how much of your time do you spend now living in this world, the digital internet world, versus being in the physical real world that your family lives in, that your pets live in, that you shop and eat and live in, and then we come into this. It's every time I think about it in this portal terms, you'd have several different images. One, you could say it's like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We all can walk through the wardrobe every day, right? We pick up our phones and look in the wardrobe. But it's also potentially like Machiavelli described when he was he's frustrated back in the late 15th, early 16th century. I can't remember whether he writes this before or after he's in exile, and having been tortured by the Florentines, and saying, I think he had been tortured, and now he's out in the countryside, and all he has of his, court life, as it were, are the books. So he spends, during the day, he spends time talking to the farmers and being out in the countryside and stuff. And then he says, in the evening, I put on my court clothes and I go into my library and I talk with the great minds, right? And so he's reading his books. And that for those of us who were readers, but even before the internet happened, living inside the books was a real thing.
Yeah, true.
I mean,
you bookworms, but you never left them.
Right, and that you have no friends. Well, maybe more friends than certain famous authors who are losing their friends right now. But we don't gossip. We're not going to tell you. You have to figure out from our cryptic little our cryptic little hints who we're talking about. We do tell you who our friends are, and you can follow them. That you can spend so much time in the books. I live persistently in the 12th and 13th centuries with the Franciscans right now, right? And I've been thinking about that, how people like my Servus Sanctus of Faenza or John of Garland, whom you guys have probably never heard of unless you heard me talking about it, are more real than the guy I just talked to this morning when I was walking my dog, and we had a little chat about his dog being the second of her litter. And, it's like, who's more real to me? Servus Sanctus and his deep and intense meditations on Mary and all of the properties of the creatures that she's celebrated through, or this man that I met once who lives down the street from my mom.
I get it. To me, really old historical documents are fascinating, especially if you can. I've never been able to hold the real ones because I'm a nobody, and that could destroy the documents. But
you can come visit me. Well, I'll take you to the library. You can hold a manuscript.
Special edition. I'll do it.
We can see that. We can see that book, the Little Baron Trump book.
Oh, that would be so much fun. But I mean, probably or a historian, an ancient historian who wrote, when you're reading his writings, especially if it's the real pages in his hand, he wrote it, it's like you're getting a letter from the past. It's a physical connection to it. So even if it weren't the actual, I've always been like, I have a connection to these people, so I totally get what you're saying, right? It's almost like they're writing me a letter, and I'm on purpose, right? Because it was for posterity. So it is kind of is for me. It's for a lot of other people too, but I'll read it like it's for me.
Well, and I've seen a digital picture of a manuscript that Servus Sanctus probably wrote on. So it's like his actual handwriting, which is
cool.
These are relics and they're traces of people's lives. And if you live in stories, if you live in books, if you're, used to being a reader, the internet it's like it's different, but it's not. It's terrifying because it's alive all the time in terms of people's engagement with it. And it's like you go to sleep and, my gosh, if I fall asleep and I haven't checked my messages for the last 12, I don't sleep that long, 8 hours. All this stuff is happening. What if I missed something? I mean, I could have that sense with books, right? What if I didn't get the book? What if I couldn't get access to the book? I mean, monks had that problem too. What if I had to travel around to find that? So that fear of missing out is not only our time, but we do wonder physiologically what the time frame. You were saying we're not on the same time zone. We're not on the same time zone. So we're not. We're like, you can feel the world, that's like they're in daytime, we're in nighttime, we're in nighttime, they're in daytime. And our ark is trying to sail through all of that. It's like the flood of it's not just the information flood, it's the engagement, the attention flood. How do we learn to put all of these stories and pieces together without, falling overboard and drowning?
The waves are crashing over the bow. This is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right. If you see those pictures of the North fishermen in the North Sea or near the Arctic Sea, right? It's terrifying to watch that. I gotta say, the ocean does terrify me because it just looks like a mountain that's rising up in front of these men. Right. And they think nothing of it because they've been doing this for years. So they're standing on the deck, cool, taking pictures. And it gets up on the internet and I see it. And then I try real hard not to have a nightmare that night after watching that. But I think that's what it can feel like, an overload of information, like, rolling over your head like a big tidal wave, and like you're going to drown in it. And sometimes I think there can be a temptation to just run away from it, instead of do what you're supposed to do when a wave goes over your head and dive into it, right? And then coast back to the shore. That's how you do it.
Yeah, so we obviously don't believe in the completely run away option here. Turn off all the devices and don't participate. I mean, indeed, it's like, we need to learn how to, I think I've also been thinking about this. We need to learn how to participate with discipline. And that's sort of another element of our training is it's a monastic problem. We're out, and we've done streams on this too, guys. If you're new to the stream, there's lots of streams in the past few years that go into some of these things in more detail. You go into the desert because that's where the demons are. So here we are in the stream, doing as the monks did in ancient Egypt, in late antiquity in Egypt, and training ourselves not to be overwhelmed by the temptations.
Yeah. Well, there's a correlation, isn't there? They're the airwaves, right? Who's the prince of the air?
Yeah.
Right? You're fighting demons, whether you know it or not.
Constantly.
Sometimes you are.
Yeah. There was something else you were saying yes, and the Tolkien image is there too, because it's the dream that he had, that he said he gave Faramir, of the drowning of Numenor and the great wave coming up and crashing. It's I hope you all are, as a witness, this kind of make a connection, put these two things together. This means is this meaningful or an accident, right? You spend enough time in the internet, everything's, there's no coincidences, right? Everything's always connected to everything else. It's like, well, sometimes it kind of actually is, but we're also trying to stay sane in the degree to which there are connections, and they're robust and sustainable, and there are others which, you know, it may feel like it in the moment, but maybe not. And we're trying to learn how to test, like, I mean, the conspiracy theories. We did an episode on conspiracy theory, and we found most of them we don't believe in, but that
was a good one I watched.
I believe in birds. Birds are real, guys. I'm sorry, they've got to be real. I'm willing to, you know, entertain discussions on the shape of the Earth or the size, whatever, the Earth part, but the birds are real. So yeah, and this is I've also been reading. Somehow I got subscribed to a bunch of stuff on Substack. I was telling you that, and of course, you know, Substack is it's as far as I'm concerned, it's a Johnny come lately. It's a newbie platform, right? My blogs are all still on Blogspot.
I know.
Which won't.
Occasionally.
Blogspot is like, you know, it's the monastic archive of blogs, because they drop their email client. So you used to be able to post on the Blogspot, and, you know, your subscribers would get an email. Can't do that anymore. So,
oh, really? And yet they're still functioning.
Partly.
I guess why is it?
Hopefully because it's like hidden in a little server that Google's forgotten about, and it's not taking up too much space for them to care.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I think more people are more familiar with Blogspot because it was around for so long than they are with Substack.
Right, but Substack is actively more monetizing people and linking stuff, and it is more dynamic in some concrete ways than Blogspot was. But all my blogs are on Blogspot, so that's where you find my archive. You got to dig in the monastic archives. You got to go to Blogspot for mine. But anyway, the blogs, the Substacks that I got, you know, group subscribed to are quite distressed at the moment. There's a good deal of distress out there in the Substackery, and it's primarily along the lines that we've been investigating in the Ark for the last couple of years, of this wildness that we're suddenly in, of, you know, I mean, obviously the internet, the one I was reading just now is talking about, you know, it's like we've got more connections going on at any given time than ever, right? And it's like, well, maybe the insects have always been doing it. Who knows what kind of information I don't know, but the human generated stuff, right, is now, you know, exponentially activating all of these things. And he was sort of meditating on the problem of the unseen world, right? How much of this will ever be explainable, and it's like, well, most of it, none, right? That we couldn't explain consciousness to start with. Daniel Dennett gave up on that a while ago, even though now he's almost giving up on atheism, bless his heart. But that we can't understand consciousness. Why can we understand anything outside of our heads at that level?
Yeah. And especially because you're hit with about 1,000 images a day now. It's your brain's trying to process all of it. Wow, people must be having some weird dreams. I just thought of that. I mean, if dreams are your brain's attempt to kind of make sense of information and get rid of stuff you don't need, there's going to be some really weird dreams out there. If you spend more time on the internet, make too much time.
Well, you know how scary I am about remembering stuff. And I have this picture that I know I saw somewhere, and I need to find it to put here. And this is why I'm so exhausted when we're prepping for our streams, because I'm like, and this connects, and this connects, and this connects, and this. You can't actually, I mean, this is, so what I find, I think I've come to this talking about it the last week or so with my family and some other conversations. Okay, kids these days, one, I think we do need to talk to the kids these days more, because they're doing stuff with the information that us oldies, it doesn't occur to us to do, for one. Not that they're necessarily clever or something, but on the other hand, they are not able to do certain things that we can, because we were trained long ago enough in, how to search. Right. This is the one thing that I found just bewildering, is like, Google is manipulating the election outcomes by doing the search complete so that you can't find what you're looking for. And I'm like, why would you trust the search complete in the first place?
Right. It never occurs to them to question it. It's like, just even in school, you know, my son was younger, teachers would say, just Google it when he'd ask a question. I'm like, why would they tell you that? I mean, did they ever like steer you towards an encyclopedia, maybe, like Encyclopedia Britannica, or no, just Google it. Every time we ask, it's like, but you're only going to get the results that Google wants you to get. You're not going to get all the results there are.
Okay, so if Google is actually actively hiding stuff now, that's another problem. But
doing that for years.
The Google it. So, okay, explain using an encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia is a book. It's got an index. You search for it by topic, which is alphabetical.
Yeah,
so
but they're not entries. There's not entries on absolutely everything.
I haven't found one there isn't an entry. Pretty good. Now,
well, that's true. Ago. No, but what I'm saying is, even the premise here is, we used to know how to do stuff, and the kids these days don't. Well, we had to be taught too, right? And it's
yes. Right.
You forget.
Yeah, it's good to remember that they need to be taught, because the teachers aren't doing it, because just Google it, right? No, but we were given lessons on how to use encyclopedias, how to use a library, how to use a reference, desk at a library, how to use things like microfiche, which was the first digitized, books and magazines and newspapers, and you would search for stuff like that. Using there was the Dewey Decimal System, but that was for books. So I think it was for periodicals. It was something different. But yeah, you had to learn.
all of it.
And they actually had a class. I think it was 5th grade. They taught us all how to do this. We did our first research project in public school, and they had to teach you how to use the reference materials. And they're all still there, as far as I know. I mean, there are libraries that still have it. Of course, the Library of Congress should have it, right? I think they still use that system.
They don't. The Library of Congress,
in addition to the
Library
others.
of Congress has its own.
It does,
call number system.
A lot of the. I think the call number systems in the libraries are based on it, are they not?
No,
Maybe
Dewey is different from the Library of Congress. Okay. So what you just said is like we were taught. Right, we were taught actually how
we were literally taught.
The reality is we were born into a sea of information that we couldn't navigate either, and the fury of the teacher in me rises up and saying, if your students come in and don't know how to do something, that's your job. Sitting around saying, oh, they don't know how to do this or that. It's like, what do you think, they magically figure it out? No, and the thing is, I've had this experience lots, right? Students high, you'll have had this experience when you come to office hours and people come in, I've given them a paper or research project to work on, and they come in as they should, because you come to office hours to get this kind of help. And they say, I can't find it in the library. And I say, okay, what did you find? And they show me a few things. And I say, okay, give me a second. I use my iPad. Swoosh, right? And their jaws drop, right? It's like, how did you find that? And I'm like, I know how to search. So the one of the stupidest things I've heard people say, it's like, if Google is manipulating searches, you're relying too much on it to tell you what the information is. You should know, you should be learning how to use the tool. Right. And I was actually talking to my brother, who is having me come back down here later this year for a conference. And we were saying, what kind of exercise could we actually give in class to help the students realize that you control the search engine? Don't let it control you. Make it show you what you want to know. And you have to know how to search in it. Now, if they completely censor everything, then we're doomed anyway. But, censorship has also been an English hobby for some time.
Yeah, that's heating up, isn't it?
But that's why there's all these Americans over here, because you censored us so much we left. Everybody in the UK, come here. Your kinfolk are over here.
Do where I live.
We left because of the censorship.
You can't criticize your government without being imprisoned. You come here and start your own country. So you know what?
So far, so good, but we're still working on it.
Yeah. Some people are forgetting that. They need to be reminded with extreme prejudice. But that's another topic for another day.
We'll have Milo on as guest. How about?
Oh no.
You think our poor little ship would survive that? Anyway, so what? He's a monarchist.
He's a monarchist.
He's blonde now. I think that's a dangerous time to have him on. So you have to learn how to search. And we were also, my brother and I were also talking about, it's like, what if you gave them say, go look for this, and then have them all go look, and then come back with their results, and let them show each other how they found different things, right? So that instead of you go down that rabbit hole, you get completely lost. And this is, you said earlier, it's like dreams, right? I think a lot of people live on the internet as if it's a dream. We promised in our advertisement for this stream, that's like, we take you places you've only seen in dreams. Well, some of what is happening with people on the internet is you go in, link takes you to the next thing, it takes you to the next thing, takes you to the next thing. Before you know it, you've gone down so many rabbit trails, you can't remember where you started. That's a dream.
Oh, that's true.
You've done Alice in Wonderland through the links. You've linked yourself through the dream.
Right. We use that expression all the time, but without thinking about it. Oh, I'm going down the rabbit hole. It's like, well, and you want to ask these people, have you seen Alice in Wonderland? Because they might have. Like, that's where that comes from. We
should do an actual stream. I hope Mel's keeping notes here, because we promise things, and then do we come back to them or not? Columbo one day, right? Alice in Wonderland. Lewis Carroll is very very interesting, what he did with those books. We should totally do some detailed readings of what goes on in Alice in Wonderland. Ironically, because Carroll was very Christian, and yet he was an ordained Anglican priest. His father was a priest.
Oh,
and he preached for a few years. He was mainly a mathematics teacher in Oxford, but he got incredibly popular for the children's books, but then didn't. He in his papers kept insisting that there was no Christian imagery in the children's books, which is another of those, wait a minute. yes there is, and we can prove it. But there so that we have this rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole metaphor for doing all. We're going to take you on the metaphor that will get you to Christ.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we're aiming for.
We've declared it. I mean, if you're surprised by now, there's no, oh yes. And this is the thing, another thing, we're not gossiping. So we're not going to tell you who's talking like this, but, we are not promising to give you secrets that nobody else has. We won't.
No.
So there goes that revenue stream.
Everything in what we write. No, they will totally recognize everything in what we write, even if it had no artwork, and the artwork is beautiful and brilliant. But if it had no illustration, you would recognize everything we're writing about.
Hopefully.
You would.
We're trying to show you what's right in front of you. And mainly it's Christ. Bluntly. Yep. Right. And what we're trying to do is,
and as Christ and Christ's opponent.
Oh yes, right? Yes.
And you'll recognize both of them for sure.
Definitely. But that to show, I mean, this is what Francis, I'll talk about Francis now. That St. Francis is famous for doing, which was, in his service to Mary, imitating Christ, making clear the joy of creation, and that he, his famous Canticle of the Creatures, where he's, saying, giving thanks to the creatures. That's what we're doing here. And so it may seem mysterious, and that we, rabbit trail, habit trail through so many things, but the point is always going to be, and here's Christ. That's it. We've told you. You don't have to watch anymore. It's just Christ.
Well, people don't recognize him.
Right.
They don't recognize his opponent either. That's an important point. It's something we wanted to point out, because people have a blindness for many reasons, not least of which is, an overload of choice and information.
I think so. I mean, we're probably blind about stuff too. So we're also trying to make sure that we're,
of course,
right. We're testing ourselves.
We're writing about ourselves too. We're writing about humanity, which we are a part of.
Right. Okay, that's a lot of layers. That all feels really abstract. You guys want to go on a real cruise? So this is
the Lido deck. Let's go.
Figure it out. that no, maybe I am. I'm a closet boomer in some of my interests, and I did, in fact, I've gone on one cruise in my whole life, and it was with some people older than me, so technically, I guess, boomers. And it was in 2015. So this is, I feel like, the timelines keep collapsing on me, because the 2015, this cruise was 10 days or so. I lost track before. Sorry. My 3 Cheers for White Men was right before Trump made his announcement. The cruise was right after. By the time we were on the cruise, the National Review group all knew that Trump was the candidate, which Jonah Goldberg had some, he took his pants off for reasons I cannot remember why. It was some kind of joke about Trump.
I really did not need to have that image in my head. Thank you.
You have it now.
Nightmare fuel. See, this is what the internet's all about.
Hey, we didn't promise they were all good dreams. just that they have the sort of
really weird one.
They have the bizarre connectedness of dreams that when you wake up, you're sure it all made sense, but you're not quite sure why. And we are trying to develop the discipline to fight the demons, control the our attention, so that when we fall into one of these, we can search for the things that we're looking for, understand the way in which the imagery actually all layers into one great revelation of God as our creator, and love, find, it is the love boat. See, we told you. That it's
the song in my head.
It's the love boat. It's the love boat of showing you God's love for us in creation, right? So now you guys definitely want to go on a cruise. That I will say, right? I thought this was a fairly simple cruise ship. I think it was Holland Line. I still get their ads, so it must have been Holland Line. And it was from Seattle up to Alaska. That was cool. And the first night was like from Seattle all the way up to Alaska, and then we came down slower. And so the first night they go further out into the water, so they're over deeper water. And these things follow in sets, right? I guess that's probably safer to have group of. So there's another cruise ship right along the side of us, and we're like racing it to Juneau or whatever. Anchorage. I should know the map. I didn't look the map up. Who knows? I was in a dream.
It's Juneau.
Okay. Yeah. And that must have been where I saw the dogs, right, on the glacier. That when we're in that deeper water and it's going faster, it is like you actually feel a little bit like you're actually at sea, because it's rocking enough. What you're describing is those waves and the I don't know, that would be scary, right? It was definitely noticeable just being on Alaska.
That's like the Bering Sea, I think, where they do the really deep sea fishing and crabbing. Yeah.
Well, I'm also thinking about how much this was okay for travel purposes and research. The book tape that we're listening to on the drive this trip is Neil Stephenson's Quicksilver, which is the first of the volumes in the Baroque cycle. It's complicated. It's 8 books in 3 volumes or whatever. And he has the opening scene is Massachusetts, like Harvard and points around Harvard. But there's a moment when the narrator talks about how everybody came there from the sea. And I'm like, okay, that does explain Boston a lot. It's a port. But that, our ancestors who came from Europe came on ships. And there's this, we have a pirate theme going on in Draco Chemicus and in the Mosaic Ark, but there's also the reality that, the European expansion with ships, like there's something deep and important to understand about the effect of being on the sea that we're also historically and imaginatively trying to access. It's interesting because I've always lived in the middle of the country, right? In Texas and Chicago. Chicago's on a lake, but I don't have the sea as the dominant reality in my imagination, but it's there somewhere, right? I've
always lived on the water or right near it. I'm always on the edges of the country. And I married a man who's from an island. So yes, it's in our blood for sure.
But it's like,
water.
I noticed this. I like Chicago because it's on the lake and there's the water, right? And so the land ends and there's water. It's still water compared to the ocean, right? The waves we get aren't ever that great. I mean, they're enough to swash over the road and blow things around, but they're not that big.
They're pretty bad in the middle, I've heard.
Well, they've broken.
You don't want to be on a ship.
They've broken up by the time they get to us.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I finally did get to be on a cruise ship, at least, which was giant and mostly stable. But that a little bit feeling of you're in that one little contained world in the water.
That's scary. I just think of the Titanic.
Yeah, that was pretty far down in that chart of how deep the ocean is. I mean, it showed a number of wrecks, and I'm like, wow.
It was so terrifying.
Yeah.
It was terrifying because it's a really good video, because when you watch it, I mean, I don't know if it's computer generated, but just they keep giving you points of reference as you go deeper, but you get the feeling that you're actually sinking down to the bottom, very bottom of the ocean. And then when you thought you were at the bottom, you go down some more, and it was a very claustrophobic feeling watching that. And
yeah.
Yikes.
Well, it's the, I know what Mel means by this. I like the Substack doc shares, but it's like Apple changing the charger point at this point. You need to explain that, Mel. I don't understand that.
Stock shares.
Well, maybe she means it's flipping around. Oh, look, and here we have, okay, Ethers are conversations going on unauthorized. An encyclopedia is a bit like a card catalog, but bound. That was my point, right? You actually have to know how to navigate what kind of entries you can look for. And so
that's true too.
You've been trained well enough that you know what kind of thing, if I want to find it in encyclopedia, what would I look under, right? And my sense with the students when they get lost in the searches is they don't even know where to start. It's like a Boolean search. What would that be, right? They don't have the concept of the way the heading titles were made, or how you cross-reference things, and this is, of course, a technology that's developed. Ooh, guess what? In the Middle Ages.
See, I used to know what Boolean searches were, and I've forgotten because it's been so long.
The ands and the ors and the stuff, right? We don't actually, the Boolean stuff, I think, is embedded in the search engines now, so you don't really have to do that.
Yeah.
But the things like alphabetization, or the alphabetization is developed as a practice in the 12th and 13th centuries. The cross-referencing, they use that in Diderot's encyclopedia in the 18th century. And it's like hyperlink, stuff that we're always saying. It's like the way in which you reference in footnotes and such. All of that, people you're not born knowing how to navigate these reference systems. And assuming those teachers that say Google it, well, you better have taught them what that means, right? What kinds of things? How far do you look?
Just look it up just ask Siri. I mean, it's so. I'm stopping myself from using the R word here.
We do gossip, but it's in the abstract about everybody.
The abstract about everybody. It's frustrating because I remember being taught how to do this stuff, and these teachers should be teaching kids how to do this stuff. Now, some of the teachers are millennials, some of them are Gen X. I think the Gen X ones probably know how to do this, but even they can, I'm guessing, just fall back on saying, well, just Google it, look up the answer in Google. It's like, you guys have a pretty decent library just feet away from your door. maybe teach them how to use that,
Okay, we're going to have to do a stream on how to search reference materials. Okay, this is good. All right. And we're also going to have to do a stream on how to interact with our own chat, so I don't be bringing it in later. Anyway, so I went on this cruise in 2015. It was July 2015. And I enjoyed the experience of being on the ship a lot more than I had anticipated. I mean, it was very, very cozy, right? Yeah. It's a cruise ship, right? But you get up and it was a little bit like being on campus, and that you're in the dorm room, you're in your little room in the dorm room. I didn't put an image of my dorm room in. And you get up and you go to the cafeteria and you find someone to sit with and have breakfast with, and that's how I got to. I charged Jonah Goldberg and tried to tell him about the temple. He wouldn't listen, or he listened and he listened and glazed. He's like,
he didn't understand you.
How do I get away from this woman? I'm on the cruise. I'm running away now. I have this effect. I have no idea why. And then what is showing here is like they had the auditorium in the front of the ship was taken over by the National Review people, and they had lectures and panels in there, and it was very comfortable, and we sat and you could sort of feel the ship rocking, and it was like a contained conference, right? So you could keep running into different people that you wanted to talk to, and
like a very nice hotel.
Like a very nice hotel. I don't know whether I would like a cruise that was simply to go on vacation. I don't do that very easily. I mean, I'm on vacation now. Look what I'm doing. But what do you do for your vacation? Oh, I go to a conference. The sociability of being with a particular group, and there were other groups on the cruise, right? It's a big ship, so the National Review people was only a subset of it, and there were other groups. I mean, family reunion groups and things like that. I totally get it. I am Gen X. I have read David Foster Wallace's essay on the horror of the cruise ship, the cruise. It's hilarious and sad given what happened to David. And I understand, right? It's a sort of horror, everything being taken care of. I think this is the next slide. I can't remember my slide orders now. Okay, that's the water, right? You see we saw the glaciers. We was cruising in the glacier bay for a bit. There's some other the cruise ships that were in the pack with us. The cruise ships never go anywhere by themselves. That everything was definitely taken care of for you. You got waited on. It's you can play the 1920s fantasy of. We got to dress up for dinner.
Did you put your fox,
they should be paying me for promoting this. It was fun. What?
Did you put your fox stole on and sit on one of the deck chairs, looking out at the icebergs?
If only. I mean, I think I had a regular coat. Maybe that's maybe I think I saw a picture that I made of my packing. Did I bring a coat? I can't remember. Anyway. And so we cruised around in the water, right? We got to see animals, right? And this is thinking about the metaphor of the ark that we're on. You've got to see animals, right? We're going to take you on a cruise. We haven't done enough animal streams. I admit it. The dog needs a stream. We need to do a dog stream this year and talk about dogs. Casey's not cheering.
I like dogs.
and just sort of our fellow creatures on the planet. We had both land and sea creatures. The dogs in this picture are on a glacier and they're pulling sleds, and that was hilariously fun. The helicopter picked us up and carried us over to the dog and again it's straight up tourist stuff, right? They do this all day,
Yeah. Did you get to ride in the sleds with the dogs, or just
no?
Watching?
And they poop while you're sledding over them. It's
hopefully the little feet didn't kick it back up to you.
No, but the sled's riding right over it because they're just like, oh, I need to go, and they can do it while they're running. It's
a little extra.
They did not warn us about that, right? So and they're all like runner skinny, these dogs, right? Not corgis, right? They're the Iditarod dogs, the ones that do the long distance sled race, and this is their summer training, tracking the tourists around the glacier. And so you get like a loop on the glacier and come back and such. We also got to see. There's some otters there, so everybody on Unauthorized Tale Vox, there were otters on the stream on the Ark tonight. Obviously, the water animals wouldn't have to be on the Ark because they can swim, but that's a good question.
But not forever.
Did the otters get on the Ark?
Well, they got to rest, right?
Well, they sleep. I think these guys are all like on their backs.
Sleep on the water.
I think they float. They like grab onto each other somehow, so they float in sets. right? These sort of
Yes.
rafts of
Yeah.
otters. And they did tell us on this tour that the I don't know what you call it. They've cleaned up the bay and gotten the otters to come back, right? It was Sitka Bay, and a lot of them had left, but they cleaned it up or restocked it with fish, or I can't remember why, but the otters came back.
Well, they eat shellfish.
Yeah.
So they must have, yeah. Boy, I wonder what that cleanup looked like to get to the seabed.
Yeah. So the otters came back, and then that same little animal cruise, we saw a whale. There's the tail. I also had a picture of its hump,
Nice.
but the tail's more iconic.
More impressive.
And then the I didn't get a close up picture of this, but that tank there is it's an abandoned like gas tank, I guess, that they've made into a bear reserve. So there's bears. There's bears swimming around in the water there.
Okay. They're swimming around in a tank?
It's so it's like those big storage tanks for
big oil tank, yeah, giant ones, right?
I thought it was gas, not oil. Well, anyway, they're the big tanks, and it was decommissioned as a storage tank, and now it's a bear tank. So the bear sanctuary is in there, and then in the top.
What an odd place for a big bear sanctuary.
It was contained. The bears look perfectly happy. They're swimming around. They got balls and stuff. It's bigger than a zoo for sure. And I think maybe whether these are they're rescue bears, and that they have to like take care of them to let them.
They can't be in the wild.
Okay, they're rescue bears. Yeah, they're not vacationing. They're rescued.
Why would bears move into a tank? I understand that they were rescues. Okay, I get it. I
think so. I don't have notes. I was on holiday. I didn't take notes. Actually, I probably did. But I don't know where they are. In the cabins every night of the week, that we had a different towel animal. We came in.
That was cute.
And they were completely different. It's like a orangutan and a octopus and a crab, and I think this one has ears. I think it's a rabbit. So we had a different. The animal theme was definitely there, and I'd say, but one of the things to understand about our Mosaic Ark is the animals are part of this mystery and this story, and I'm realizing now, saying this, we haven't talked about animals enough, and yet they're intimately a part of everything that I'm usually thinking about. I did a dog episode for the Tolkien series, because I think all Tolkien's dragons are basically dogs. They go together in his stories, yeah, and they're his Baron Luthien, his great heroine, is helped with her dog, right? So rescuing Baron from Morgoth and getting the Silmaril back, it's a girl and her dog achievement.
Oh,
so yeah,
slight difference from a boy and his dog, right? Classic story.
Yeah, no, it's Luthien gets the hound that helps her go rescue Baron, and they go and get and defeat Morgoth. So Mel is saying we have Bridgerton. Okay, so we have Columbo and Bridgerton,
right?
And we need to do something on Lewis Carroll. And what else have we said?
I would like to do Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates, yes, we have to do. Because
we talk about it all the time.
We did some at the beginning, but we should revisit that now that we've studied more about pirating.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how good a job of incorporating history into their fiction they did, the writers of this series. It's really very good. So it's way better than I thought it was the first time I saw it. And now, I'm going to watch it again and just be amazed. Very good. Highly recommend it.
Well, and especially since I realized after listening to Stevenson's Quicksilver and all the alchemy references in there, Act 4 for us, I mean, it was already projected to be in the 17th century, but it's definitely with pirates. He has the whole thing about, it's like in Pirates of the Caribbean when Jack's going in to the harbor and he's waving at the guys in the skeletons in the cages. That was apparently real, and it was outside of Boston Harbor. It was on the border between the town's jurisdiction and the open sea, right?
They did this in Boston Harbor, not in the Caribbean.
Well, they probably did it in Caribbean too, because it's like the edge of the jurisdiction of the land and the sea, right? And the pirates, the land jurisdiction can't get the pirates in the sea. So if they cross over into the land jurisdiction, so they put the pirates like they're a border. The pirate executions are on the border between the open sea and the harbor.
Ugh, gruesome. I didn't even know there were pirates in the north.
There are pirates everywhere. It's the sea.
What did they have to steal up
everything?
There, I mean, they were going for the ships carrying gold and things like that. The only thing they had up north were fish and maybe lumber.
Rum.
Well, rum was brought up from the south. Again, you just go to the source to steal it, wouldn't you?
Okay, we need to do a proper study of pirates for sure.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Okay. All right, so consider that the animals are out there in the background, but what we tend to talk about more, and realizing that cruise ships do this, right? They take you different places, and there's a kind of accidental quality to what you're able to see. Not accidental necessarily from the perspective of the land, because those are the people that are expecting the cruise ships on a regular basis, but the cruise ships, so like if you take a river cruise in Germany along the Rhine, they're going to show you castles, and they're going to show you, natural cliff formations. I haven't been on that one. I need to do that cruise. You'll see bits of nature. You'll see animals and such like that. That our Ark, the Mosaic Ark, has that same level of, we're exploring all of the different levels of creatures from the land and the way we live. I'd say the way we live in our geography, and we've done a lot of streams on that, right? The road trips and the mountains, and this is our first sea one, but it's how we are in Middle Earth, right? Living in this world. And then there's the level of the other creatures that we're with. We should do some plant episodes too, I think, trees and flowers and such.
Fungi.
And Mel, did you get that one?
Talk about plants that communicate with each other. They can communicate over thousands of miles. The internet of mushrooms. So we have to do that. So all of that's there. But what we've talked about much more in the first 2 years is this cultural connections, and that Alaskan coast is wild, right? Because it's all Russian. Yes. Yeah. That's where we brought it from.
There are, Russian Orthodox churches there. There, in all of the gift shops in this part of the cruise, there are the nested dolls, right? Which apparently are in fact Japanese, but the Russians appropriated them and turned them into a Russian thing.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
There's the I'd say this shop window has these stuffed dogs in it, and I was just like, hilarious shop window things that obviously it's a commercial. They're commercial ports for the cruise ships and such, but the towns there are, this beautiful icon of Our Lady and the Orthodox Church now with a flag, American flag in it. We've dealt a lot on the Mosaic Ark with this layering of culture and history and stories, and like, whose story are you in? And the more we can pay attention to that layering of history, the more we've argued you get a better sense of the real mythology is the best way we've come up with describing it. The stories interacting with us all the time, and we think about it as, we're in this rational world that has one history in it and such. It's like, nah. You've got all of these spiritual energies playing out constantly, and they show themselves in different ways. It's very sad that Mr. Gaiman didn't just stick to that as his forte.
Yeah, I mean, we do live in a rational world, but that doesn't mean we all have the capability of understanding all of it all the time and everything that's going on, because there's so much going on. Physically and spiritually all the time.
Right. Well, no, we have our reason to understand things that we're made with. and our emotions to respond to things, particularly each other, right? We create social connections with each other. But the medieval tradition of contemplation is all about wonder. It's like we're going to get to a place where these things are all going to start connecting together in the music and in the art and in the mathematics and in the scientific observations, and you're still there with the mystery of, and we're creatures.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's a strange difference, right? All this brilliance, and then there's us who sometimes get a glimpse of it and can express it, but usually not. But that's why true art is really miraculous.
Well, but we're made to contemplate this stuff. That's the point. God's frustrated with us because he's like, look, I gave you all this beauty and you're ignoring it, or you're destroying it, or you're.
It's like that joke I heard recently. It was like God's talking to an angel, and he says, "They're what are they drinking down there? I gave them like 5 animals to get milk from. Why are they drinking soy milk?" He says, "Oh, they don't like that milk." So just toddlers, right? They didn't like that kind.
Yes, or all it's fun to be artists and it's fun to be making things, but we've said this before, right? It's all, everything we do is, our finger painting on God's refrigerator. It's
right. I made them to contemplate this. Why are they looking at that? Why are they doing that?
Or pretending that they're, wishing that their finger painting was better than the thing I made, their dog, right? Or something like that. It's like the robot dogs that are supposed to be replacing our pets. And it's like, are you crazy?
Oh, yeah. my one of my relatives gave her elderly father a robot dog for Christmas once. He was not amused. So
I'm glad to hear it. He said, "No, I want a real one."
Yeah, he didn't say it quite that nicely. I think he was rather insulted. He thought it was for a small child.
Why are you giving me toys? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so there's with the and then occasionally this is me on the cruise. You can see, there I was, dressed in cruise outfit. James O'Keefe was one of the speakers there, so I got to meet him before a lot of his adventures. Right, this was fairly early on in his being arrested and having difficulties with the law before he lost his company completely, right? And had to go on the second layer. And then the panel of, I think Jonah is in one of that panel. It's definitely Kevin Williamson, and I forget who the other people are in the panel. So, we are on the Ark sometimes scrapingly touching the political discussion, but not really, because we're not really that interested.
Well, except for a couple of examples. I mean, we discussed Trump and we discussed Putin a couple of times, but mostly not.
Mostly not,
because it's just much more interesting things to talk about.
But that does mean that we're doing this now because they're saying, so we're going to figure out how to brand ourselves properly so that you know what we're up to. There's categories of streamers, right? The biggest category of streamer is gamers. Happy Gamergate anniversary.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, isn't it?
10 years.
It's now, right? Is it today? Is it actually today, or is it just this week?
It was yesterday or today, I think, or maybe it was just this week. But yeah, I was seeing those announcements. I'm like, wow, has it really been that long?
I'm surprised. So yeah, because it was 2014, and this cruise was in 2015, and it was actually, I'm pretty sure, was already a feature of people's attention somewhat, although not as much as it would become in 2016. For me, at least, when I was, hearing all the gamers thank Milo for helping in that particular coverage. And Vox was talking about it, that he was one of the original Gamergaters. I've lost track now thinking about Gamergate. Oh, right. The streamers, we appreciate that we are girls in the boys' room. That the streaming is very much... the gamers world.
Strange.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as much as women talk, it's mostly streaming is a man's world. It's strange. Never thought about that until you mentioned it.
It is. I mean, and this is like, I've been invited to be on lots of other people's radio shows and streams and such and so forth. It's mainly men who've invited me, and I can think of some women who have shows who I've been on, but there's just not as many. We're so special. Well, I guess, I mean, there's women out there doing other stuff, but we're not doing that. So sorry, no fashion tips.
Well, fashion tips, no, gosh, what would it be? No, Now, I'm not going to say it. I don't want to insult anybody. This is a woman thing. Maybe men insult each other so much more easily. That's why they can do this better.
Well, they definitely gossip, do, because it's like Milo. Why is Milo on the stream so much tonight? Go away. Men banter and haze each other with
yes,
hazing. How's he say it? He says it the same way usually. That women, we play different kind of social. We've obviously talked about that a lot, right? On the Ark, trying to understand the differences between men and women's social interactions, and the Barbie streams and mainly the Barbie streams. Some of the poetry streams talking about what's the difference between men and women's. Men's poetry seems to be all about how much they love women, but who are we to say? We're just reading the Oxford English
to do things for them.
But that we do hope, even though we're trying not to gossip, to be honest about those differences, because obviously people are confused.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's
spent too much time in these co-ed arcs. They're not. I mean, the original arc was co-ed. There were men and women on it, so you could have more men and women later, right? 2 by 2.
Yeah.
But the sort of sense, obviously, one of the things we're committed to is being positive about the differences.
Yes. Yeah. It's. See, Mel and I have been getting angry over the Olympics for the past 2 weeks.
You had special secret girl chats that I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
No. It's in her river. It's in her river.
Oh,
chat,
okay. Yes.
So no, it's out there. Join it.
Ladies, you know where to go.
Yeah. No, we're sickened by the opening and closing, ceremonies, but we're also sickened by the men competing as women. And additionally, sickened by the man who's controlling the Olympic Committee, who's pretending he can't tell the difference between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Not even there's just no scientific way to do it. Peeing on our heads, telling it's raining, telling us it's raining. It's just
no scientific way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to do it mythologically then if you can't figure it out scientifically. Right. So,
I can suggest a few painful things that might test this out, but nah.
Oh, what I
mean, let's just go with what you're saying.
This I think we have touched on a fair amount because we got tangled up in the sociosexual hierarchy conversation for a little bit.
No, she mentioned it.
Mel saying, "Y'all are fun gals." Tee. That now I forgot what I was thinking about. I'm so distracted.
And men and women and how we appreciate the differences.
I hope I certainly do. I like the differences. Just thinking about I just as Vox professes not to understand how women interact with each other, I have no clue how men interact with each other by themselves, because unless I'm watching their streams, because if I'm in the room, it's not happening, right? It's like, duh. So,
right.
It's
right.
And I've seen this. I do have one example of a Milo stream that he was doing, and a woman came in, and the whole dynamic changed instantly. Right.
Oh, that's interesting.
He's playing his Sharia Tuesday game again on X and saying no women can post on the internet on Tuesdays. And
does Milo control the internet now?
Well, just his own little corner of X. But
What if I identify as a man just on Tuesdays?
He'll see through you. You won't. No, we could have, you could go in and test and see how long you survive, right? And that being, woohoo,
I'd have to create.
There's a plan. I predict he would sniff you out in the first post.
Hey, fellow dudes.
Yeah, right. Hey, fellow dudes.
What are we talking about today?
You wouldn't last the second. The flames would.
Get flamed out.
You get flamed out, right? So, being dishonest about these kind of social interactions has created a lot of stress. I mean, the stress is there anyway because we have to find mates and bake children and carry on with the Ark project, which is more of us and life. Right, we're here on the Mosaic Ark are in favor of life. We're the Ark for life, but that's not going to happen as long as people have no sense of courtship. We can't teach you how to dance on here, but we recommend it. The ship should have a dance floor.
Should have a dance floor, and it should have dance instructors on hand.
That would be good
to teach people because they don't know, they haven't been taught. Just like referencing. So we need reference coaches and dance teachers. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good. And in all of this, I mean, I think the despair posting, the doom pilling that's going on about how this is the wildest the world has ever been. I don't get it. I don't buy it. I mean, I think we've been in a time, I mean, the Enlightenment spawned the Romantic period and all the spiritualism of the 19th century. So it's hardly as if we've been in a kind of pure rational trip. I mean, modernity is also just as much all the drug trips and seances and spiritual shenanigans as the Middle Ages. I mean, more so even, right? So that we're feeling it now, it's actually probably good because I do think we as we're working on in the poetry that we do in Draco Chemicus, showing the way all of the spells of advertising and the media and, the government speak have been cast over the last 100 years. And it's brilliant if they're breaking now, right? It's brilliant if everybody's suddenly going,
it is.
Oh my gosh, it's all been...
Which is
a cardboard.
Which is why the governments are getting desperate. Like British government, right? The German government is getting so desperate, and even our own government, to stop it because they see it too. They see it stopping. People have figured out they're saturated with this stuff and they're starting to dry off.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
And Christ would say, please let us not fall back into another spell. It's probably likely that we will since we're sinners. But
right.
The answer will still always be the same. It's Christ. And what I did realize, it's like learning why that's the answer is the opportunity we're given in life. It has to be a kind of pilgrimage, a cruise, right, through these difficulties so that we can, I think not just appreciate. I don't think it's like that, but that there are ways in which I don't know. I need to better articulate this because it's a sort of gamer trip, right? It's like level up. I'm gonna get gay with that, right? It's like it gets difficulty. Okay, so now you dealt with that monster. Now God sends you another one. Yes, which kind of happens, right?
Yeah, it's a gamer world, right? You're fighting monsters left and right.
Right. And the gamers, you guys know how to do this, right? It's like, and you got really upset 10 years ago when they came in and, instead of telling you the truth about the games, colluded to try to, give you games that nobody wanted to play and promote those. And we was like, no, we want real games with real challenges.
I know.
And
they haven't got them yet. I live with two gamers. Yeah. They're not around yet. Yeah. Not that I've seen.
The new games aren't. This is the gamers that I live with. I realize I haven't seen them play in a while, so I don't know.
No, because all of the it's big bad boss girl and all the men are stupid. That was one of the more popular ones. Just I think 2 years ago, and I can't remember the name. I wish I could, but that's okay. I don't want to give them free advertisement either. But it was this cool game where you get to kill all these mech animals, right? And try to solve a mystery of the origin of the woman who's the heroine of this particular show. And I'm sure somebody watching probably knows the name of it. And that was okay because they're really cool mech animals and they're cool to try to kill them. And I've watched the dudes I live with play it, but every time they had a male character come on, they would purposefully reverse in a they would take a stereotype of how women act and how men treat them, right? And they would reverse it, and so you'd have the women snarling at and speaking badly about the men, and the men acting domestic and demure. And it was like, and it was just so obvious they were just trying to insult the men who are playing these games. I'm like, I can't believe you guys are actually playing this. It goes like, yeah, that part sucks, but it's fun to kill the mech animals. That's all they want to do. They want to go on an adventure and kill these big mech animals,
right?
But
so they put up with the women. I mean, that's
they put up so far, but they're not going to keep doing it because they still noticed it and it still bothered them. Funny enough, it bothered me more because I tend to pay attention to this kind of stuff, which is probably why I do this with you.
Well, of course you pay attention to it. You're a woman. This is what I was thinking about. That the every woman knows what that operation feels like, right? And you'll just do anything not to get the group turning on you, except for you won't because you're me and you end up streaming or whatever. But it's a horrible feeling. It's a really, really horrible feeling, and women do it to each other in these very under the radar ways. And like I say, the men are probably sending signals to each other that I might as well be a cat to their dogs. I don't know what they're doing, but the dog signals that the women are sending, I get, right? And it's I've written about this why we need Mary because we need a happy Feast of the Assumption yesterday. Need her focus on her. Go back to our Mary picture, right? There we go. Focus on her so as to not fall into all of these social structures that we use.
Right. Yeah. Which you don't have in your, I probably should have thought of it earlier. One of my favorite depictions of Mary is she's met Eve, right? And she's there, it's kind of greeting her and comforting her at the same time, but they're both smiling, right? And it's a gentle, sweet smile. Like this has obviously happened after the resurrection, right?
Right.
When they've been brought by Christ, into heaven. And it's like, oh, everything's better now. It's okay now. But yeah, just focus on her because she's the one that you want to meet. She's the model that you want to be. And I don't mean a model for how you structure your life. I mean a model of her spirit. This is what you want.
I think I actually have a print of that a friend gave me. I think I've seen that in your Telegram chat before. Yeah, it's home. Really sweet. It's very sweet. And it's also implicitly in the Ghent altarpiece that we looked at last week that was Mary's there praying, but Eve is like facing her on the other side. So right. And yes. Obviously it's after the redemption, so that's Eve restored.
Yeah, Eve restored, right? And finally she's happy once again, which is a beautiful thought.
So we can do that better. So we do. Whoops! I'm going back to the animals. No, I could stay on the animals. We're gonna go to the next one. So we have the social level that we're trying to explore and talk about, but we're not going to do the political analysis. The guys are doing that. We'll do something else. So we'd say that there's this, I don't know, a foursome of the quadrate arc problem of the world that we're in, the creatures that we're living with, the culture that we're participating in, and the people that we're in conversation with, and that at any given point the cruise can take us to different layers of this mystery.
Right, different ports of call.
Yeah. and we persistently trying to figure out, it's like what's the the single word capture of this sort of phenomenon, right? And you know, it's the ark is the church in ways. It's also Mary. It's the container for all of this human experience at all different levels.
Yes.
And through time and space.
That's the mosaic part.
Right. So we had some sample mosaics to show you how we think, right? You want to show them how we do these? So
yeah.
Right. Well, one I had, this is, we use the mosaics a lot in our our messaging, right? In our newsletters and sometimes in our covers and often in our streams. And I realize it comes out of a kind of game that I think all of us have probably played at some point. It's like you put together random pictures and make a story out of them. My family had we had a set of these that we'd made, and you deal out 10 cards and you have to connect them all in a story. The reality is that's kind of what we're doing all the time, simply in our our consciousness. You're taking different elements of what you notice, and then my camera's shaking tonight, so I have this ship effect. So I keep bumping the I keep bumping the desk that everything's sitting on. That
you're in a boat right now.
Clearly in a boat. In the middle of the, I'm in the ancient seas of the high plains, somewhere in the middle of the continent. That, what we're always doing, our minds are pattern. I mean, I think we're pattern noticers as much as anything. And you're trying to put together, how are these things related? How do they make sense together? And this is why the conspiracy theories are so delightful and frustrating, because eventually everything connects to everything else. Like you and if you're
6 degrees of separation, right?
And if you're smart enough, you're going to figure out how, it's like, this is Vox likes talking about how intellectuals are even more likely to be caught in their own constructions than anybody else, because we're so good at it, right? You're gonna that's connected to that, and I know that this is the cause of that, and therefore this, right? And everybody else is going, what? There are leaps in there I could never make. I have no idea. And so, this is a problem for us in understanding the world, is saying, when you've made a leap of connection, is it paranoid? Is it your need to find some reason and logic and meaning in the world? And atheists accuse us of doing this, right? It's like, oh, you're just finding connections of stuff that's not there. And we're like, well, we find them a little too consistently for them to be completely made up, so we reject you.
Yeah.
But we also, the opposite side of it is, and I, say this sort of teacherly like, since the Middle Ages, Christians have lost touch with the structures of symbol reference that were developed from antiquity and through the Middle Ages to in fact make sense of all of those stories in the scripture. And so if you go to sermons now, and I'm sitting in a sermon and someone making connections to stuff, and I'll go, that's not there, what are you talking about?
I know some people are better at others, priests included.
Right. So we are trying. It's like, here we are disciplining ourselves by sailing around in the middle of the demon infested waters of the sharks and orcas and whales and everything in our Leviathans. The Leviathan's out there. The Leviathan is always out there, and trying to make sense of the things that we're seeing, and therefore in our conversations in the Ark, testing them. And the thing is, I don't know anymore whether I truly pull them out randomly or whether it's our mascot in the Ark is, of course, the Holy Spirit's dove. And so we say, if our dove Lord is showing things to us, we're saying, we don't know why these things are coming together, but oh my gosh, this really made sense. And once it's together, you say,
it happens all the time. It's crazy.
All the time. In our writing. She means in our writing, right? It's constantly happening. And then we're saying, okay, so who put that there? Did we mean that to connect together, or wait, that really does connect? And the thing is, you find this in literature, you find this in art, you find this in movies, you find this in history. At what point is it actually the meaning is there. At what point is it our minds are seeing it there? We're not so much agnostic as cautious, I think, here on the Ark.
Well, I think I mentioned before, our minds try to connect dots. They try to fill in gaps, to the way you would try to fill in a gap in a sentence. And it's kind of like, I've experienced this just recently, actually. I experience this every once in a while, where I'm sleeping, I'm trying to wake up in the morning, and I've had this odd dream that I can't figure out, and I can't wake up because I keep trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is kind of what happens when we're wide awake and looking at all of these different sources. Right. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in our subconscious which tries to come out in dreams, and it gets kind of scrambled up, and that's why you're trying to I'm going to try to make this fit, and it just doesn't fit, right? It's a lot easier when you're awake, especially for us when we're writing. These things do come to us because all of us who are involved in this writing tend to read a lot and a lot of different types of stuff. And we've seen a lot of different types of stuff, and it does tend to all be connected in some way, like a web, the web, right? Yeah, much easier when fully awake. It's a frustrating dream.
Well, but it is. I mean, I'm familiar with it from my work as a historian, because you're trying to figure out causation, and it's like which things go together that are actually relevant, significant. You know, and historians change mode in terms of the degree to which they think connections and causes are meaningful. And I'm big on, you know, thinking people notice things spiritually when, I guess, like what we know now, like in our media environment, things become apparent to us that weren't previously apparent. I think that's probably more what's happening with the internet, that we're noticing things with new metaphors, but the reality is still what it had been. And so, you know, if you think about the mind as a book versus thinking about the mind as a computer, or if you think about, you know, the net or the any of the sort of power, like I did a lot of thinking of a year or so ago on light, because I was reading McLuhan. He's talking about the electric light, and I realized that light in the medieval context is these oil lamps hanging from the ceiling, or candles, and that you know, in McLuhan terms, that creates a whole nother environment that people are living in. So we in Mosaic Ark and in our poetry and in our streaming here are trying to be conscious of the way we're putting all these things together and testing it, right? And that's a challenge, because I think to say that none of these connections are real is as stupid as saying, you know, absolutely every juxtaposition has significance, even though we can probably figure out a significance if we stick two images together. So I did just as a play test, right? I was like, okay, I'll pick a few images from my recent you know, photo roll, and this is what I come up with. I can't remember whether these like fancy perfume bottles or something I saw on the cruise or not. They were in that collection of pictures. So here's
those were beautiful,
the perfume bottles. Aragorn and Arwen's kiss at the end of The Lord of the Rings. Louis XIV receiving some other courtier, and they're all in very fancy performative dresses. The monkey, falconer carrying an owl, who Milo again, he's just in the stream tonight. I used as an icon for him when I was originally writing about him in 2016 as the jester. It is a monkey. It's in a, you know, it's one of these marginal creatures in the manuscripts. To me it was the sort of the jester marginalia that's pointing to things because he's disrupting everything. And then he's pointing by way of my sticking him in this picture juxtaposition to the kids in the recent youth mass, the World Youth Day, right?
Oh, right.
And you say, okay, is this one story? Are these 5 images part of the same story? You know, and of course, to my mind, they have to be, because there's, you know, the jewel-like element of the perfumes that rise up in the kiss and the Song of Songs, and you know, that is the welcoming to the court, and it's only going to be through joy. And here are the kids at the mass celebrating it. See, I did it in one sentence.
There you go. Wow, that's good. That's good.
But I mean, what's funny about it is this is like, okay, so where do authors come up with their ideas? Guess what? I think a lot of it's that, right? Tolkien describes how we're always drawing from the soup of stories when we're retelling stories, and we were saying having the fairy tales and such, and like the Granny Weatherwax character of disrupting the fairy stories so that, you know, people aren't forced into the wrong happy endings and such. That, you know, we're making stories, we're taking the things that we, you know, encounter and are drawn to in the world and finding meaning in them, finding significance in them. You know, I think we're meant to be doing that. I think God made us to do that out of curiosity and pleasure and wonder, and that story making is what we're you know, anything else, that's what we do. We talked about that in the stream a few weeks ago, right? Poetry and storytelling is culture. It's the single most basic thing we know human beings do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do like to tell stories. To be dismissive of them is just, I don't know, it's just kind of like throwing a gift back, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things behind my Forge of Tolkien conversation, that I start with the criticisms that the critics all had of Tolkien. I mean, now it's like however many years on, 70, everybody thinks, oh, of course, fantasy was always a genre. It's like, no, it wasn't. Tolkien's book fit in nobody's categories, and the critics to this day, right, the literary critics all hate it. They say it's they do.
They hate joy. I think they do. I just think they like doom pilling type books where, you know, the worst of all human conditions is explored. At least that seems that way. I'm a little. I'm thinking about the books that I had to read. Some of them I read some excellent books, but it was at a time back in the 80s when they were starting to mix in contemporary authors with the classics. They were not good.
Well, they have nothing of the transcendent, right? So nothing of joy, nothing of the eucatastrophe that Tolkien points to, and the turn when.
No, and somebody, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, was one of the authors. In fact, is it going to be one of the authors that might even be at Basecamp? I can't remember which one. He was talking about The Great Gatsby. I hated that book. I know that's considered a classic. I hated it. There was not one likable character in that entire book. It had a terrible beginning, a terrible middle, and a terrible ending. And none of the people were likable. It's like, why is this a book? Why is this a thing? Critics loved it, didn't they? Why? Because it was focusing on everything negative and bad and sad and despairing. You know, even people who had been given everything, you know, they're not happy and they're not good people.
Right.
So what's the point of the book then? Nobody learned anything except that it always gets worse. It's a terrible message.
Well, and this is, I'd say that to everyone, this is the thing that we found the biggest challenge of writing Draco Chemicus. Spoiler alert, we always talk about Christ, so guess what? It's a Christ story. But there aren't any, right? It's like we have models for all sorts of things in the storytelling that we're doing, but finding a story that plots in the way that Tolkien plotted his story, or Lewis plotted his, or even P.G. Wodehouse. One of my friends talked about how P.G. Wodehouse is very Christian in his storytelling. Or Dorothy Sayers, right? All of these early 20th century English authors are trying to write as Christians. And I'm always trying to find someone else who is now. And please send recommendations, right? Because it's really hard.
Yeah, seriously.
It's really hard to find authors who write with, I mean, even if they're telling, challenging stories of sorrow, don't have that hope that.
That's it. The Great Gatsby's nihilist. It's nihilistic. And I think the shunning of Christianity led to the shunning of Christian authors and Christian themed stories. Right?
Yes.
Now the Christian story genre is well, from what I've seen, not great, because there's probably a whole lot of Christian authors out there that are great that aren't getting produced because they're not nihilistic. Well, I'm just taking a guess. I don't know. I would love to see some.
There's regular pleas in the literary journals, the literary magazines for, why don't we have more Christian poets? Dana Gioia has made a plea several times for that. And yeah, and it's a sort of like the Christian poetry doesn't end up as counting as high literature or
No, no, which is probably why they still hate Tolkien,
social
right?
literature, right? Yeah. So we're always going to be in a sort of the categories like we love Tolkien because we love writing with that kind of
Yeah.
metaphysical understanding.
I mean, he was brilliant, and he couldn't, and the people's love of what he wrote couldn't be suppressed, and they tried to suppress it, and they're still trying, and now they're trying to subvert it, and they're still failing,
right?
Because he's brilliant, because he had a unique gift.
Well, he participated in the Christian gift, right? And this is I've
Yes,
finally given in to Vox's plea that I write a book about Tolkien, and so I'm going to be thinking about how to write this, which is specifically Tolkien's Christian prayer. I do know how I think I'm going to work it out, but it again, it took us 2 years to figure out how to label the ark, so give me time. Anyway, so my next example was in fact the way people tend to work now, which is in memes and sort of irony and despair, and they are encouraging, and I say happy Gamergate for this week because a lot of that happened in memes, but I realize I have 4 different kinds here. The Chad guy looking at the top one. Chad guy's looking at horror like posters for horror movies, Friday the 13th, Scream.
right.
He's saying, nothing scary. And then at the bottom, it's Christ in black and white saying, "Depart from me, I never knew you." And that that horrifies the Chad.
Terrible.
Yeah. So we appreciate that kind of horror, the horror of not being recognized by Christ. And whatever horror we're writing is going to be in those terms. Fun fact, a majority of archaeologists are women due to their natural ability to dig up the past. Well, we take that challenge. And we will dig up the past. I thought that was cool. It was sort of sweet in a nice way. Then we have Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes, one of the 2 or 3 greatest comic strips ever. Bloom County being the other, and Dilbert sometimes. Calvin saying to Hobbes. Oh, and also there was in Unauthorized World a discussion about showing that discussion about an article that talked about how Calvin is a very sad character. You realize it's the boy growing up around all the girls, and the girls like Susie are encouraged and given ribbons and stuff, and he only has his stuffed toy as a friend. I mean, I think it's pretty good having a stuffed toy as friend, but that's
a sad. I saw that. That was kind of a sad observation.
It was sad. Like, how do you be a boy, right? Be a man, you got to worry about following Christ. We get that. Be a woman, we're going to be digging up the past. Calvin saying, "Here's another math problem I can't figure out. What's 9 + 4? Hobbes. Oh, that's a tricky one. You have to use calculus and imaginary numbers for this. Imaginary numbers, 11, 30, 12, and all those. A little confusing at first. How did you learn all these things? You've never even gone to school." Hobbes. Instinct. Tigers are born with it. So we endeavor to make, so the imaginary world of having your tiger friend, but also hopefully learning a little more in school. And then the gloom of the gloom. The 4th example I get in some of the emails I get every morning on Illinois government policy. And it's a couple looking at their home for sale sign, and the husband saying, "I've got a feeling the market will heat up soon." And underneath his property taxes in the magma, and then underneath that, overpromised government pensions. So this is, I suppose, to say we're aware of these problems. And yes, we are in a politically and economically kind of perilous moment, but with tigers we'll get through. I don't know. Anyway, so you had your example. You tell your story from your mosaic.
Okay, you scrambled mine. So mine was a collection of landscapes and places I'd visited over the past, I guess it's 4 years. So the first one was a 4th of July from our porch in the house where we used to live. We don't live now. And my husband took the picture, just thought it was a really pretty picture. This was the beginning of the lockdowns. So 4 years later, we live in a new place. We live somewhere else far away. We took a trip across the country. We saw Arches National Park in Utah, and that's one of the pictures. And I'm trying to remember all the pictures I gave you.
They're in the order you gave me them. It's like the top row.
Oh, okay. Right, because I thought you scrambled them.
I did, and then I put them back so that your mosaic actually is chronological now.
Okay. Well, I'll say it. Okay, so there's also a picture of we just took a quick trip to the Blue Ridge Highway. Stunningly beautiful, really. You know, the West Coast has these gigantic mountains. They're volcanoes, and there's not a lot that grows up there because it's too high of an elevation. The mountains themselves are very pretty, but when you get up there, a lot of pine trees, not a lot of anything else. I mean, there's animals and birds in the summer, but not a lot of anything else because it's too high, it's too cold. So you come down to the Blue Ridge Mountains on the entirely other side of the country, and there's this explosion of plant growth that's stunning. It's just stunning. I mean, I saw a moth there the size of my hand. It was called a lunar moth statue. I was walking by it and I stopped and said, oh, that thing's real. It was just incredible. So I've seen these amazing things. And there's a picture of a chapel in there too, which is just a beautiful chapel. It's actually a church, but it's the size of a like, it reminds me of an English chapel. And it was built in the 18th century by Irish laborers. And I mention that because, wow, those people had some skills.
Yeah.
They had some real skills because the tile work in there is beautiful. The woodwork is stunning. You know, even the glass work is even stunning. The whole building is out exterior is made of stone, so it looks very kind of cold and boring gray. But when you walk in, it's this beautiful wood. It's like you're the inside of a tree. It's gorgeous. It's really just gorgeous. It reminds me of something that I imagine you might see in England, right? Or Ireland, as it turns out. So my very last picture was something I just saw on the internet. I didn't see this one in person. I think it was unearthed in Turkey, and it was a floor mosaic of a skeleton. But this is the happiest looking skeleton I've ever seen.
Miniature skeleton.
Yeah, I thought this is great. I made a sticker for it for Telegram because I love Halloween. I said, this is what it's all about right here, right? I remember I thought of the cartoons that were done in like the 1930s and 40s of the ghosts. They'd like Disney did a lot of Halloween ghosts and skeletons, and the skeletons were always smiling. And I thought they were trying to be absurd, but then somebody unearths this, 18 or maybe I guess it's like must be like maybe it's a 15 or 1400-year-old mosaic from somebody's floor. And, it was basically symbolic of, when it was specifically Christian, because I think it might've been a church at one point. And that, death does not bring despair for us. Right. And it was actually, when I saw it, I didn't clip this one. It was next to another mosaic that was from a pre-Christian home. And it was a skeleton who was drinking and eating. And of course, the message is, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, right? Like, that's it, nothing nice after that. So the post-Christian skeleton was happy and smiling and looked like he was kind of singing like praises or something like that. And I thought, that's really cool. So my mosaic started with the beginning of the fake scamdemic lockdowns in 2020 and ends with a happy skeleton. Just thought, that's a really odd thing. But that was the last thing I saw on the internet.
Well, you had
that's true.
So, and this is, so I'd say it's like we practice this, right? The internet brings us all this stuff, and I collect some of it in my Telegram channel to show people. It's funny which things I collect into my Telegram channel, and which things we just use part of the poetry work, right? They're not always at the same register of. Isn't this curious that it's happening? But particularly in Telegram, if you guys aren't on Telegram yet, it's a trip, right? and it is. And in ways that, even X nice, it's kind of fun. X is livelier now that we cannot get banned off of it instantly. Although I managed to spend the COVID time teasing Facebook about fact checking stuff that I was sharing, and I only got 1 or 2 warnings. I don't think I was trying hard enough.
You failed. That's sad.
I've only been, it's like, I have been banned off some real life stuff, but that's kind of behind the scenes. So, I don't have full social media cred yet of pure cancellation. But that we're finding all of these things and they're coming at us. And I did notice though, I started realizing that the streams can all end up kind of being the same thing over and over and over again after a while, right? It's like I was thinking about what we were going to talk about tonight and what we're trying to do with the Ark, and realizing even the alternative media of the socials is converging on particular stories and not talking about a lot of other stuff. X does have, I have noticed X has a lot of fun, like long thread things, the culture and wild photographs, and there's some good accounts out there that are doing nice sort of visuals, visual threads. But the kind of work that we're doing here in terms of bringing the stories together, I'm not sure anybody else out there is doing quite what we're doing at all. Well, we're that unique, and therefore we're probably a decade in advance of our time. So we're going to be just in trouble for. Well, what do we do? What do we do? I think you froze, my dear. How did you get through the whole week, the whole time you freeze?
I don't know. I wasn't sure you could see that because I know you could still hear me. So
you're frozen. Well, we have this is you know, we hope now. For those of you who've listened live, thank you. And for those of you who are sharing, watching now, that we have maybe given you a better idea of what we are doing as your tour guides, your cruise directors. We which Julie we are. That
Julie McCoy.
Welcoming you aboard our Lord's Ark, and sailing around creation looking for the different layers of story that we're participating in, and trying to therefore access some of both the wonder and the meaning in this crazy ocean of conversation that we're in. The metaphors keep collapsing on me. I just look up at the sky and see the sun blaze. This was a few days ago, and I'm driving across the Panhandle, and there's the sun in the clouds and the glory that the painters always tried to capture, which is the world that we live in, that was made for us by God.
I need to remind you, or if you don't already know, then tell you that the 19th of August is going to be a super blue moon. So that means it's going to be rare and larger than any other moon this year. And the next time they're going to have one is decades from now, I think. So
super blue moon. So everybody watch for the super blue moon. That's Monday, right?
Yes.
Monday night.
Yeah.
Okay. So any concluding thoughts for the pilgrims on the cruise? We're very happy that you're here on board. Now you're trapped.
Come aboard. We're expecting you. The Love Boat.
If we can capture some, we have some music by Moira Grayland for one of our trailers. And Kiltz did the piano for our streams. So we need a theme song for sure. Gotta get a single theme song
with lyrics.
Hey, I had Proud to Be an American in my car. You want me to sing it? No. Okay. Well, so everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe. Please subscribe on Unauthorized so you can watch all the backstory Tolkien episodes. We are taking a break from streaming for the next couple weeks. And the next time we come back will be the first week in September. And I haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do. We might stream as a regular thing from home and then do another stream when we're at BaseCon. I don't know, right? But we promise to be back in September. And until then, see, we need a catchphrase too.
Catchphrase.
Yeah, we gotta get all this branding down. It's like, okay,
it's gotta be something nautical, hasn't it?
Yeah. So the we take you places you've only seen in dreams. That's a promise. Right, and then we have to send them off with a mission.
I'll have to think about this. Because you already said love boat, we can't say dream boat. That's
We're
a
the
different
Mosaic
connotation
Ark.
altogether.
But no, it's like it's like Patrick Coffin has, be a saint, what else is there? And that's his like closing thing, right? So
yeah.
Pilgrims welcome. See you next time, pilgrims. No, wait. You're still frozen.
It needs work.
All of this needs work. All of
Can
this
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but you're still in startle. No, that was just
I've looked worse, frankly. We both know it. Where Skype has frozen me in some really awkward positions.
Skype is teasing you now. It's capturing you for the ages. Okay, guys. God bless you, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.